Welcome back to some new petty revenge stories, where people share small victories over those that wronged them. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Payback. I work in the financial services industry. My manager, we'll call her Linda, is the epitome of the Peter Principle. For those who aren't familiar, it's basically when you are promoted to a level beyond your skill set. Linda was constantly missing work, leaving me in charge as the only supervisory delegate with the proper licensing to manage in her absence. Around Christmas, she decided to take the 2 weeks prior and up to Christmas, and I was to take the week after once she returned. She called me on my first day of vacation, and she said she was cancelling all vacation for the remainder of the year. It turned into a shouting match, and she eventually screamed at me to take my vacation and hung up on me. About 6 months later, I was going for a promotion for a job I was well qualified for. I aced it in the interviews and gave a brilliant presentation. I knew the other 2 candidates and I was clearly the top runner. She was on the hiring panel, even though I would no longer be her direct report. She blocked me from getting the job. Fast forward several years, and I am now in a new position in the same company. My new manager reached out to me and asked if I knew Linda. I said, yeah, why? He explained that she was applying for my same role and would be on my team. Petty revenge time. I told him she was the worst team player I had ever had, and that I believed she was only doing it to ensure she stayed around long enough for all of her company stock grants to vest. I assumed correctly that she was being managed out and was looking for a place to land. She didn't get the job. She ended up leaving the company and likely left between 3 to 500k on the table as unvested stock. The next story is called Not Paying. A few years ago, I worked as a private hire taxi driver in my country. Basically, I was working taxi without a license and you use your own personal vehicle. But it's usually overlooked as long as you don't cause trouble or an accident. Anyway, it's not uncommon for people to regularly hire us for special jobs, and some drivers would have multiple people as clients. Well, I had this one woman who had hired me before call up and asked me to drop her to the next town over and pick her back up later. I agreed and decided to go. So I arrived at her place and wait some more. I did call her, but she would only say she was coming, but still nothing. Finally, after over an hour, she finally came out with her kids. I am mad as she didn't say anything about her kids coming with her, but say nothing and we head off. I have nothing against kids to begin with, and I figure more money in the end. By this time, it began to rain, and I mean serious rain. Complete whiteout kind of rain, and the route I had to take was through some hills with a lot of blind bands. But for some reason, the woman thought I was being dumb for being cautious by blowing my horn and taking my time at each horn. Again, I say nothing, and eventually we reached the town. But then she told me to take a couple of turns to an area I was not familiar with, and I saw a street sign marked STB. It's when I realized this chick took me to one of the most notorious places in my area. As STB was a place most drivers avoid because it was a place taxi drivers get robbed or worse. But anyway, we arrive and I tell her the fee, to which the chick starts to yell, saying it was too much and that she would only pay half. Cause apparently making me wait for her for over an hour and being conned into going into a high crime area in a rainstorm was only worth less than half than what I was owed. Worse still, she wanted me to come back to said high crime area after dark to pick her up, meaning she would have to walk out of said bad area at night before she could get another taxi. Again, I say nothing and take the money she gives me before leaving. Later that evening she calls back and again, I say nothing. In fact, I don't even answer the phone and eventually block her number. But this is not the end, as she calls me a few days later from another number and she has the gall to try and hire me again. I tell her no and hire someone else before hanging up and blocking her again. But I was not done. I then began to warn other drivers about her and how she liked to short pay. Needless to say, I doubt she would get anyone to drive her anywhere again for a while. As for me, I actually got another client the very same day who would hire me regularly and pay very well each time. So at least things worked out for me in the end. Word to the wise, don't try to screw over your only ride. third story is called BK Manager. Many moons ago, I worked at Burger King as an hourly manager while in college. I liked the job. I could do 3 or 4 shifts per week when I was in school, and it was really easy to be full-time when school was out, as I would cover vacations for both my store and other nearby stores. At one point, the store manager changed, and the new guy was a piece of work. He had been a manager with Burger King for over 20 years. After he had been at the store for a week, I saw why he never got promoted. He did no work. Nobody liked him. He complained about everyone, and he would give staff a hard time. And, most amazingly, he had this way of disrupting the service line that made everyone tell him they had it under control and that he should go back to his office. I used to volunteer to close on holidays and stuff. I mean, I was a college student and wanted the hours. Also, this was the 80s, so closing time on days like New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve was 8 PM or earlier, when it was really slow. Closing New Year's Eve included a bit more work, as we had to do a full inventory and significant paperwork. The first time I did this, I worked with the old store manager, and she was great. We both worked hard, and we were done in 90 minutes flat. She also showed me how to do the paperwork. I had done the next 2 New Year's Eve closes by myself, including the paperwork. The year after that, when the new store manager had been at the store for like 4 months, he decided that he was going to close New Year's Eve with me. I was upset, as I wanted to be at a friend's party by 11:30 PM, and I knew he would make it take forever. That shouldn't have been an issue, but this guy was a grade A schmuck. I am pretty sure he worked this shift on purpose, because he knew I would do all the work and he could just sit around and take all the credit. I did speak with him a little bit during the shift, telling him about the party I wanted to go to. He shared that he told his wife he would be home by midnight, so they could welcome the new year together. Since there were 2 of us, he didn't schedule an extra staff member. As I expected, he sat around all shift, so inventory didn't start until we closed. We finished that up around 11 PM and start on the paperwork. He insists he has to do it. When I ask to leave, he tells me I have to stay so I can watch him do the paperwork. I asked him why, but he was just being a jerk, so I stayed. He was the slowest person with the paperwork I had ever seen. It's now 11:30 and he is barely halfway through. I want to get to my party before midnight, so I ask if I can finish the paperwork at home, sharing that I will bring it to my shift tomorrow night. Since the paperwork isn't collected right away, the delay shouldn't be an issue. He agrees and I grab all the paperwork and punch out and head home. I do the paperwork and, as promised, bring it to my next shift. Later that week, I am working when the district manager is there. I had a great relationship with him. He loved that I would help cover at other stores, even last minute when I could. I asked him how to report the time I worked at home on the year-end paperwork. He gives me the strangest look and just says something like, "Huh?" So I tell him the story of our close that night. He was furious. 2 days later, I come in for my shift and I'm told that we will be getting a new store manager the next week. The old one was fired. I did a little dance, which was fine, since the assistant manager who told me the news was smiling. I talked to the district manager later about what happened. He said that the store manager was on probation for all of the problems that were happening at the store, including many that happened prior to him transferring to the store. My story was just the last straw. It was then that I realized I got my revenge, even though I hadn't realized I was doing so until it was too late. The last story is called Fast Food Manager. When I was 18, I got my first job at my local Subway sandwich shop and quickly learned how awful fast food jobs are. When I started, we had a pretty small team of around 10 people total, including myself. My general manager and my district manager were 2 completely different people. My GM quickly became my friend, and the DM became someone who I wanted to look up to until she started showing her true colors. I ended up working this job for about 2 years, becoming a shift lead at one point. I didn't stay shift lead for long, but since I worked both days and nights, I knew this job inside and out. I was one of the 5-ish people who knew every task and job there was, other than just making food. Since I knew every job, I was expected to come in at pretty much any time. At the same time, I had just started college, and 2020 was at its peak. The stress of college and work was getting to all of us, not to mention the thought of getting sick. The first issue I had, among many, was the first time I got the booster. I became super sick like many others did at the time. I was still expected to come to work and got so dizzy from running around that I almost passed out. Once I got better, I was expected to come in all the time, sometimes going from closing one night, working an 8-hour shift and opening the next morning, meaning my sleep suffered as well. It eventually got to the point where I had to step down from shift lead to focus on myself, which the DM did not like. She would complain jobs weren't being done on the shift I happened to be on pretty much every week. There was always something for her that most of the time turned out to be a plain lie. This DM also had a favorite saying: "I can do this job by myself, and you are all replaceable." This is when the petty revenge comes into play. After enough of the rude remarks from the corporate and customers, I said I would need to take some time off for a few days to focus on my mental health. I brought this up to my GM, who was perfectly fine with it, since it was 2 weeks in advance, the standard requesting time off practice. But my DM wouldn't accept it. She claimed that it's too short notice and we need you for truck those days. By the way, none of those days were when our truck comes, which was on Thursdays. I finally had enough and said if she wouldn't accept that I needed time off, I would be forced to put in my 2 weeks notice and quit. She gave me the same "you are replaceable" BS, and I decided I was done. I waited for a Friday, our busiest day. I noticed that the other people scheduled for our shift consisted of one other person who knew how to do most jobs, except close the safe, which I could do, and 2 others who couldn't even work the oven by themselves. Fine. You wanna say I'm replaceable? You can find someone else. I purposely turned my phone on silent and blocked their numbers, refusing to even answer them. After not coming in, I learned she had to come in and fix everything, which serves her right. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.